Out beyond the ideas of tool watches or professional sports watches, when we say haute horology, we are really only talking about exceptional craftsmanship and finishing in watchmaking. If you are familiar with the word haute horology, I can almost guarantee that you are also familiar with the names Patek Philippe and Audemars Piguet. And if you are familiar with these names, then you most definitely know the difference between a professional sports watch and a luxury steel sports watch. And if you do, then we are comparing two of the best luxury steel watches in the flesh to exist. We are talking about a brand with 2 centuries-long history, Patek Philippe, founded in 1839, yet having uninterrupted history of watchmaking since its formation. And then Audemars Piguet, founded in 1875, the only brand in the Holy Trinity and haute horology watch manufacturer that still remains in the hands of its founding family. If you find this video informative or helpful, please don't forget to support me by liking and sharing this video and subscribing to the channel. I don't review watches to market them. Rather, what I share here is purely my opinion and close analysis. I don't make videos to sell the watches. I make videos because I love watches. Audemars Piguet was the first steel luxury watch conceived, sketched and designed by Gerald Genta in 1971. This was AP's attempt to save the company and mechanical watch industry from the quartz crisis in early 70s. The concept of integrated bracelet watch with hexagonal bezel and visible screws was something that no eye had ever seen or imagined before. Royal Oak marked the birth of steel luxury and integrated bracelet watch, the idea that was later adopted by Patek Philippe in 1976 in the form of Nautilus, and then Vacheron Constantin in the form of 222 in 1977. This idea of integrated bracelet watch was not only the savior of mechanical watch industry, rather when we look at today's watch market, after close to 50 years, the idea is still existent and being adopted by some of the renowned names in the watchmaking, including Hublot, Lange, Moser, and the list goes on. Before we get too far down the line, let me clarify that the model of watches featured in this video are not the creations of Genta. Rather, these were designed by Patek and AP later, and neither of these models come any close in comparison to the models sketched by Gerald Genta. Now, although these models were designed later by the manufacturers, they basically took the inspiration from the original models reference 15202 and 5711, the original models of Royal Oak and Nautilus, to design these watches and offer them to a relatively larger market and at a relatively lower price point than the original models. The 15400 takes the inspiration from 15202, and the best part is that it maintains the original vibe and elements like octagonal bezel with exposed screws, tapestry dial with guilloche pattern and similar 3-link bracelet. But the difference is the size and the movement, which does change the overall watch profile, thickness and overall vibe completely. Not to mention the history. The 5167, on the other hand, is also a watch inspired from Nautilus, but comes with more design changes. We have here a completely different dial that has embossed checkerboard pattern on it, a watch case that although has similar bezel profile as Nautilus, the dial has Arabic numerals, and then the watch case itself is not integrated into the bracelet as well. Both watches come with octagonal bezel, although Royal Oak makes a perfect octagon, whereas Aquanaut makes more rounded edges of octagon, and if anything, it looks more squarish than it looks circular. The bezel screws on Royal Oak take the inspiration from Jumbo, and similar is the case with Aquanaut, where the bezel comes with vertical brush lines similar to Nautilus. The dial on both watches come with different pattern, machining and workmanship. Both watches come with 3-dimensional dial texture, where we have embossed checkerboard pattern on Aquanaut that further comes with sunburst treatment, and you can actually see the radial lines on the dial too, although not with naked eye. Royal Oak comes with tapestry pattern, which has very small squares embossed on it. The treatment on AP is very special and is something that you would rarely see in any other watches. If you look closely, there are circular grooves inside each square of the dial called guillot-shaped pattern, and this is achieved by mounting each dial individually on pantograph, and in result we have a dial playing with the light like absolutely nothing else. Royal Oak is an integrated bracelet watch and Aquanaut is a standard watch head only, which then has bracelet held by its lugs. As simple as it sounds, you can see that Royal Oak maintains the design profile all the way from the case to the bracelet and even the clasp, and this is essentially the beauty of integrated bracelet watch. The integration of bracelet is one aspect, but the finish quality on bracelets is also not quite the same. Look at the brush lines on the center link of Aquanaut bracelet and then compare them with the brush lines you see on Royal Oak. And you don't even need a seasoned eye to spot that the brushing on AP is far more refined, consistent and crisp. The polishing on Aquanaut bracelet is also really average, and to me personally, the bracelet polish and overall feel on Aquanaut simply lacks the high-end feel. Both watches come with double deployment clasp with quick release buttons, and there is no quick length or micro adjustments on the go. Another main difference which is worth mentioning is how both of these watches wear. Between the two, Aquanaut is more suitable watch for smaller wrists, and that's primarily because the bracelet of Royal Oak does not stick straight down. Rather, it flares out further after the case before it goes down, giving you the minimum span of 54mm. The bracelet of Aquanaut tapers straight down, so the minimum span of watch is the same as that of the lug-to-lug height, which is 47mm. So regardless of what is your wrist size, if your wrist span is less than 55mm, then 41mm Royal Oak will not hug your wrist as it should, and you are either left with Aquanaut or you could go with 37mm Royal Oak. To clarify further, wrist span is the vertical flat surface of your wrist where you strap the watch. Both watches come with manufacturer caliber in-house movements that are also not only very reliable but beautifully decorated to please your eyes. Both watches come with exhibition case back to showcase beautifully executed gold rotors, gold-stitched Geneva stripes and polished beveling on all the bridges, and then the polished screws and circular graining on the plates. Absolutely a joy to look at, regardless of whether you look left or right. Aquanaut doesn't come with hacking seconds hand, which is a little disappointing, and there is also no instant date change at midnight, which is also a bit of further letdown and defeats the concept of attention to detail. The date on Aquanaut starts changing just before 11:30 PM, and if you notice the date after this time and before midnight, you will see a date misaligned between two numbers, which simply looks ugly, especially when this watch is all about high-end horology and experience. Royal Oak, on the other hand, comes with hacking seconds hand and instant date change, and whatever is the time of the day or night, when you see the date, it will either be one date or the next, and the date also clicks to next number right at the midnight, which is impressive. Comparing the lume of the watches, both watches come with the lume of their own style. We have lumed Arabic numerals on Aquanaut, and then continuing with the classic looks on Royal Oak, we have stick hour markers, and the lume inside the thin and long hour markers is simply a beauty to behold. If you notice the lume on Aquanaut in this particular example, it is unfortunately also not consistent, and you can see that the hour markers 5 and 6 are dull when you compare them to hour markers for 4 and 7. I discussed this more in my hands-on review of Aquanaut as per the link on top right corner of your screen. On the wrist, both watches work fine for me, and that's because although my wrist size is only 6.5 inches, my wrist span is 55mm, which is more than the minimum span of both of these watches. With 40mm Aquanaut and the lug-to-lug of 47mm, it is technically 1mm smaller in size, but it will wear like a 40mm size, and you can see that it contours to my wrist just perfectly. With Royal Oak, not only the case size is 1mm larger at 41mm, but also the minimum span of the watch is 55mm, so it requires a relatively wider wrist for it to wrap around and fit snugly. That being said, The integrated bracelet fit means that if your wrist size can take it, it fits like a glove, and the experience with this Genta design bracelet is truly another level ahead of Aquanaut. Which one is a better choice between the pair is a hard call, because what we are talking about are the best watches in the market to exist by two of the most renowned and oldest watch manufacturers on record. The similarity between these two watches is that you get a product that is manufactured with nothing less than love, craftsmanship, and centuries-long experience and skill in watchmaking. With Royal Oak, you get the iconic looks and a rich history of how one watch single-handedly saved the whole mechanical watch industry. The only steel luxury watch produced to date by the family that founded the brand. With Aquanaut, you get the experience and ownership of a little more older brand horologically, and a watch that is relatively more understated and subtle with smaller size and rounded profiles. At the end of the day, it will boil down to what suits your personal taste, and there's really no wrong choice here, as these watches carry around the same retail and secondary market prices. The second defining factor would be your wrist size. For me personally, I wanted to replace my Royal Oak with Aquanaut until I held them side by side, and after that, I only loved my Royal Oak more than ever before.